the 1970s. Bell-bottoms, disco balls, and some of the greatest music ever recorded. But here's the thing nobody wants to talk about. Even in this golden age of rock and roll, some absolute head-scratchers somehow clawed their way to the top of the charts. I'm talking about songs that spent weeks at number one, while classics from Led Zeppelin, the Rolling Stones, and Fleetwood Mac couldn't even crack the top spot. Songs that had us scratching our heads instead of bobbing them. Welcome back, I'm your host Danny, and today we're diving into 7 terrible number one songs from the 1970s. The hits that make you wonder what the hell were we all thinking. You Light Up My Life, Debby Boone, 1977. Let's start with the big one. The song that basically held the entire year of 1977 hostage. You Light Up My Life by Debby Boone didn't just hit number one. Oh no. It camped there for 10 consecutive weeks, like that house guest who just won't take the hint. 10 weeks. That's practically a geological era in radio time. Written by Joe Brooks for a movie of the same name. And trust me, you don't want to watch that film. This song has all the emotional depth of a Hallmark card soaked in maple syrup. Selling more than 5 million copies, it became the biggest hit of the decade. But here's where it gets weird. Debby Boone later revealed she was singing it as a love song to God. Nothing wrong with that, but did anyone know that at the time? Most people assumed it was just garden variety romance, not a spiritual experience. Picture this. You're driving in 1977, and this song comes on the radio, again, for the third time that day, and you realize you're trapped in an endless loop of overwhelming earnestness, while Hotel California and Dancing Queen are sitting somewhere lower on the charts, wondering what they did wrong. The song was also responsible for Boone's Grammy win as Best New Artist in 1978, proving that sometimes the universe has a twisted sense of humor. It's the ultimate example of a song that was everywhere precisely because it was, well, everywhere. Seasons in the Sun. Terry Jacks, 1974. Now here's a real puzzler from 1974. Seasons in the Sun by Terry Jacks. A song so depressing it makes funeral homes seem upbeat. This wasn't just a hit, it was a global phenomenon. The song began a 3-week run at number one atop the Hot 100 and remained in the top 40 until nearly Memorial Day weekend. It was the second best-selling single of 1974 in the U.S. and went on to sell more than 3 million copies in the States. But wait, it gets better. Or worse, depending on your perspective. The song went to number one in 16 countries, including the U.S. and Terry's native Canada. Worldwide, it sold 14 million copies. The song is basically a guy saying goodbye to everyone because he's dying. Cheerful stuff for your morning commute, right? It's adapted from a French song by Jacques Brel, and somehow Terry Jacks thought, you know what America needs in 1974? A really, really sad song about death. And here's the kicker. Most radio DJs hated it, especially after a while. Imagine being a DJ in 1974, forced to play this tearjerker multiple times a day, while secretly wondering if you should offer tissues to your listeners. The whole thing feels like emotional manipulation set to a melody. It's the musical equivalent of that friend who tells you all their problems at a party. Sure, it's heartfelt, but maybe save it for therapy, you know? My Ding-a-Ling, Chuck Berry, 1972. This one's particularly painful because it involves Chuck Berry, the godfather of rock and roll, the guy who gave us Johnny B. Good and Roll Over Beethoven. So how did his only number one hit turn out to be a song about, well, his ding-a-ling? My Ding-a-Ling hit number one in 1972, and it's basically 3 minutes of double intendos about a bell. Except everyone knew it wasn't really about a bell. It was recorded live at the Lanchester Arts Festival in England, and you can hear the audience losing their minds laughing like a bunch of teenagers who just discovered dirty jokes. This is Chuck Berry we're talking about, the man who basically invented rock and roll. He's got a catalog that reads like a greatest hits collection of American music. Yet this is what put him at the top of the charts? A novelty song that sounds like it was written for a frat party? The most frustrating part is thinking about all those incredible Chuck Berry songs that never hit number one. Maybelline, rock and roll music, Sweet Little 16, stone cold classics that couldn't crack the top spot. But a song about playing with your Ding-a-Ling? Number one with a bullet. It's like if Mozart was only remembered for writing chopsticks. You really can't choose what people remember you for, can you? Billy Don't Be a Hero. Bo Donaldson and the Haywoods, 1974. 1974 was apparently the year America decided it loved really depressing songs. Because here's another one that somehow climbed to number one. Billy Don't Be a Hero is peak 70s melodrama. A girl begging her boyfriend not to go off to war and be a hero. Spoiler alert, he doesn't listen, and things don't end well for Billy. It's like a soap opera condensed into 3.5 minutes. Now, context matters here. This was 1974, right at the tail end of the Vietnam War. America was exhausted, divided, and honestly pretty done with war stories. So what do? We make a song about not being a war hero our number one hit. The irony is thick enough to cut with a knife. The song has this weird contradiction going on. It's anti-war in message, but delivered with this upbeat, almost cheerful pop melody. It's like someone took a serious topic and wrapped it in cotton candy. The result is something that doesn't quite know what it wants to be. Bo Donaldson's earnest delivery doesn't help matters. He sings it like he's trying to convince you that this shallow, oversimplified take on war and heroism is profound, but it's not. It's the musical equivalent of a bumper sticker trying to be a philosophy textbook. And the timing. While this was sitting at number one, we had incredible music being made. Real, complex, interesting music that actually had something to say. But no, America wanted Billy and his poor life choices. Tie a yellow ribbon round the old oak tree. Tony Orlando and Dawn, 1973. Here's a song that was absolutely inescapable in 1973. And I mean inescapable. You couldn't turn on a radio, walk into a store, or apparently exist in public without hearing about that damn yellow ribbon. The story goes, guy gets out of prison, writes to his girl, says if she still wants him, tie a yellow ribbon around the old oak tree. Simple enough, right? But then you hear that dramatic, swelling chorus, and suddenly you're trapped in the most overly sentimental 3 minutes of your life. Tony Orlando's voice is so earnest it hurts. And Dawn's harmonies, while technically solid, add this layer of syrup that makes the whole thing feel like musical diabetes. Its sentiment cranked up to 11, when maybe a 6 would have done just fine. The worst part? It worked. People ate this up. It spent 4 weeks at number one and you couldn't escape it. Radio DJs played it constantly, probably because it was the kind of song that made listeners call in to request it again. Meanwhile, you've got the Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, and Pink Floyd making actual art, and America's obsessing over tree decorations. Here's what kills me about this song. It's so manipulative. It knows exactly which emotional buttons to push, and it mashes them repeatedly. By the end, you feel like you've been through some kind of musical therapy session you never signed up for. But that's 70s pop in a nutshell, isn't it? Take a simple concept, add dramatic orchestration, and hope people don't notice that there's not much substance underneath all that production. The Streak. Ray Stevens, 1974. Oh boy, here we go. In 1974, streaking was apparently a thing. People were running around naked in public, and someone thought, you know what this cultural moment needs? A novelty song. Enter Ray Stevens with The Streak, a song about, well, people running around naked. It hit number one and stayed there, proving that sometimes the collective judgment of an entire nation can go completely off the rails. The whole thing sounds like a vaudeville act that got lost and wandered into the 70s. Stevens tells the story with this exaggerated, almost cartoonish delivery while sound effects and crowd noises play in the background. It's like a radio show from the 1940s, except about naked people. What makes this particularly cringeworthy is how dated it feels now. Streaking was a brief cultural fad, and this song is essentially a time capsule of a moment that probably should have been forgotten. It's like if someone made a #1 hit about planking or the ice bucket challenge. Stevens himself said he got the idea from reading a newspaper article about streaking and thought it would make a great song. Yeah, sure, Ray. That's exactly what the world needed in 1974. More songs about public nudity. The fact that this spent weeks at #1 while actual musicians were creating lasting art is just baffling. It's comedy, but it's not particularly clever comedy. It's more like that uncle at family gatherings who thinks he's hilarious, but really just makes everyone uncomfortable. Muskrat Love, Captain and Tennille, 1976. And finally, we end with perhaps the weirdest entry on our list. Muskrat Love by Captain and Tennille, a song that is exactly what it sounds like. It's about muskrats, in love. Somehow, this became a #1 hit. Now, Captain and Tennille weren't nobodies. They'd already conquered the charts with Love Will Keep Us Together, a legitimately good song. But then they followed it up with a love ballad about rodents, and somehow America said, yes, this is what we want. The song was originally recorded by America. Yes, the band that gave us Horse with No Name. But it was Captain and Tennille's version that really took off, complete with sound effects that were supposed to represent muskrat. I'll let your imagination fill in those blanks. Daryl Dragon's keyboard work is actually pretty sophisticated, and Tony Tennille's vocals are, as always, technically solid. But none of that changes the fact that they're singing about muskrats getting it on. The production value can't save you from questionable subject matter. What's really wild is that this happened in 1976, right in the middle of some of the best music ever made. You had Stevie Wonder, Elton John, and Queen creating masterpieces, and America chose to celebrate Muskrat Romance. Gary Puckett, who worked with the duo, summed it up perfectly when he said, "It's a polarizing little number. Some people can't believe they didn't play it at concerts, while others thank them for not performing it." That's probably the most honest assessment you'll ever hear about a #1 hit. There you have it. 7 terrible #1 songs from the 1970s. Songs that conquered the charts while actual classics sat on the sidelines wondering what they did wrong. These songs are still remembered today. They're part of the 70s soundtrack whether we like it or not. And they make the great music from that era seem even better by comparison. Which of these made you change the station? Which one did we get wrong? Let us know in the comments. And if you survived the 70s and remember any of these on constant rotation, you have our sympathy. Hit that like button if this brought back painful musical memories, and subscribe for more trips down memory lane. Every decade has questionable chart toppers. We're just getting started. Thanks for watching. Sometimes the most interesting thing about a song isn't how good it is, but how it became popular in the first place.